So, for instance, we divide the number of policies a branch had in 6 or 7 categories. First, membership requirements. If you need to pay a quota for being part of the financial system, which is close related to the idea of Gringo Jovanovic. If you need to pay some costs for being part of the financial system, what do you expect to have? What are the conditions on wealth? What is the correlation you should find in having a firm with or without the financial system? So that's the first type of policies. The second one, savings policies. Interest rates. How interest rates varies with savings. Credit policies, the same idea but on credit. Collateral or warrantor requirements. It's not the same thing in a perfect market that you should have credit just because you're talented, that in an imperfect market that because you have not perfect information, banks require to have some collateral. Theoretically, the larger the collateral, the more bias toward just rich people the credit is. So we will study that kind of stuff. Training and services. Well, Bansefi do not only provide credit and savings, they also provide some training for the small business and a program evaluation and firms evaluation, project evaluation. So we want to see if those things also affect the incidence on wealth. If these other services, which are not typical from a bank, also provide good outcomes. And finally, something I call centralization. Maybe for a country such as the United States, it's not a big issue, but Mexico, all the decisions are centralized. Typically, the main decisions are taken in Mexico City, and they only spread the interest rate or the rules across the country. What if the branches have some power to decide by themselves? It's an interesting hypothesis, right? And what are the variables we are going to study? Okay, these are the variables that creates differences in outcomes, potentially creates difference in outcomes. What are the variables that potentially are affected by the policies? Well, we have wealth, we have the volatility in wealth, we have income, consumption, durable good purchases, which is different from the consumption, typical consumption, because durable goods are more related to investment of the household, refrigerators, cars, stoves, savings, starting a business, which is occupational choice. One of the main predictions of the NAV model, one of the first models Luke presented, was that what financial access permits is that by having credit, the constraints on low wealth and low income people that are talented but do not have credit vanishes as you increase the financial access. So people that are talented and can run a business, but they don't have the collateral for having a business, if you expand the financial system, are benefit. So we're moving from maybe being as working for other firms or working in the agricultural sector, use their talent and create firms and create capital. That's why occupational choice is also important. Reliance on money lenders, sharks, money sharks, I think they call them, right? People that gives you a loan, yes, effectively, but at a huge interest rate. What if you, for instance, do some varying policies here? What happened to this variable? And the mobility in the labor market. So basically, we are addressing not only wealth and consumption, but also labor market issues, because all of them are related to each other. So what we did was to create a large, and I mean large, set of complementary models. For what? Not just for fun. Believe me, it's not fun being running models again and again and again, but for consistency. Robustness and consistency. What do we mean by that? We want to see that if we find a positive effect of financial intermediation on wealth, it is positive and significant for any specification of the model we have. That is robustness and consistency for my students, by the way. Okay? Take note. Will be an exam. Oh, no, it's not true. Okay. So, the taxonomy of the models. Okay, if we are going to run a lot of models, we need to have a roadmap about what we are going to do. So the roadmap is very simple. We are going to study two family of models. The first family has to do with the effects of membership on outcomes. Just for being in the financial system, how different are your outcomes, how it affects your outcomes. We have some predictions of the model. We are going to test if they are right or wrong, if they are satisfying reality. But, bad news, we need to keep it simple, but not that simple. And the not that simple is that we can include membership in different fashions. Why? Well, because membership, by definition, might be correlated with the fact that people are poor or not. So, how do you measure the effect of membership in wealth if wealth affects being member or not of the financial system? Well, we have three types of models, or family of models to test the consistency. First, we call it direct participation effect. The second one is a linear instrument on how membership is determined in the household. And the third one is like a more fancy self-selection participation constraint, which is not linear. It depends on the cost and benefits of being in the financial system. But again, keep in mind that this is just the first family of models. How participation affects the outcomes of the household. Good. The second one is more tricky. Why? Because, well, if we want to test for microfinance institutions' policies on outcomes, that's good. We have many families of policies. How do we address that? Well, the good news is that we can address it by just including the policy there. What if it increases the interest rate? What if it requires collateral? But the bad news is, if the first model is true, then participation should be also included in the regression because it's important. So it's not only the policy, but the participation itself. And they can be correlated. But before we have 4 models for addressing participation. So guess what? This simple model creates very complex interactions between the policies and the participation. That's why we need to keep in mind that even though the policy is just in the outcome equation, because we have different definitions for participation, we need to address that. Also, well, if the policy is directing the outcome, what if the policy affects participation? And this is more intuitive. By the way, this is my favorite, my personal favorite approach, which is if you change the policy, you change the cost and benefits of being in the financial system. And because you change that, you change the decision of participation. So we are going to address that also, but in the membership equation. So, okay, this is the idea, the roadmap. Let's go to the math. The simple model. You have the outcome of the household defined as wealth, occupational choice, income, savings, all these variables we addressed in a couple of minutes ago, and they are a function of household variables, village variables, right? Which is like they call it social networking or social capital, and membership. If they are or not in the financial system, or they have or not BANSEFI and MFI's services.